Gestational trophoblastic diseases are rare diseases, and it's basically an umbrella term for a number of diseases which has a common factor of pregnancy, that is, they're related to pregnancy, and it's due to the abnormalities in placentation and more particularly in the trophoblastic cells of the placenta. So to understand these diseases and their variety or their differences, we have to know the basics, that is a little bit of embryology and the structure of placenta, and that is what will be dealt with in this part 1. So this is a very simplified image of the uterus with the fallopian tubes, and we'll start from the very beginning. We have this guy here, that is a spermatozoa, and he is the lucky guy among the many millions. He has reached here, and he has another task of reaching up here till the ampulla where our ovum is waiting for him. So let's draw an ovary from where this ova has gone there during ovulation. So this ova is waiting for him, and he has reached there, and fertilization is what is occurring there. And after fertilization, we'll have the zygote, and it will divide and form a multi-celled mulberry-like structure called morula. And this morula now has to go back to the uterine cavity. So it's moving in, and it has reached the endometrial cavity. And now it is called the blastocyst, since it has formed a cystic space here, and it is what you call the blastocyst. Now it has to implant into the uterus, or the wall of the uterus, or the endometrium more specifically. So this the blastocyst will have an outer layer now called the trophoblast. So that is one thing we have to remember now. The outer layer is trophoblast. And before going to that, we have to go a little bit into detail into the wall of this uterus, which we had drawn just as a simplified image initially. So this is our uterine wall, and I have magnified this image here like a kind of an inset, if you will. So this is the endometrium, or what I meant to be the endometrium. This is the myometrium, and here we'll have a serosa. So this is the entire stuff here. So we have the spiral arteries here. So which stage would it be? It will be secretory phase. So implantation occurs during the secretory phase, and when this this blastocyst has to now come and attach to the endometrial cavity here. So let's see what happens. And okay, this has already happened, and the blastocyst is in fact very much inside the endometrial cavity. Now when this occurs, that is implantation occurs, the cells of the endometrium will undergo a change, what you call as decidualization. That is, the cells will begin to enlarge and become polygonal and filled with glycogen and lipids, and they are called as now decidual cells. So the endometrium is from now on called as decidua, and decidua are of 3 types, and this is again an image to show the entire thing. This is the entire thing is basically endometrium, or what you call as decidua now. Implantation has occurred in this side, as seen here. This side it has not occurred. So this is the basal part of the endometrium, what you call now as decidua. So it's called decidua basalis, and this is a capsule has formed. That is, there was a defect here, but the endometrium has managed to patch up that part, and that is what you call decidua capsularis, and the rest is completely called as decidua paritalis. The rest, entire thing, this part only we have to call that this is capsularis, this is basalis, then the rest of the thing is decidua paritalis. Okay, so again this is again a higher view, if you will. This is the cytotrophoblast, and cytotrophoblast will divide and form syncytial trophoblast. So cytotrophoblast are cells which have a cell membrane in between them, that is their individual cells, And when they form the syncytial trophoblast, if you see, there is no division, that is, they form a syncytium. There is no cell membrane in between them, so they are a syncytium of cells. So this is called syncytial trophoblast. This was a cytotrophoblast. Now there is another type of trophoblast. It is called the intermediate type of trophoblast, and it is very important to understand because many of the pathologies are from the intermediate trophoblast. So syncytial trophoblast is kind of the most differentiated stage. Cytoblast trophoblast is what is a dividing stage. Syncytial trophoblast will produce human chorionic gonadotropin, HCG, placental lactogen, etc. Now HCG is very important to even to maintain pregnancy, because if you know, the corpus luteum is what produced progesterone and maintained the secretory phase and did not allow the endometrium to shed off. Now when this corpus luteum is going to degenerate into corpus albicans, the entire endometrium will lose its support and it will shed off along with our poor blastocyst. So this should not happen. So this human chorionic gonadotropin produced by the syncytial trophoblast will go on and stimulate the corpus luteum, and this corpus, suppose it's ovary, and as corpus luteum is there, so ovary, and this corpus luteum will begin to enlarge. In fact, it will become more and more larger than its initial size, and it will produce more of progesterone. So this is called corpus luteum of pregnancy. So HCG is very important to convert corpus luteum to corpus luteum of pregnancy, and hence maintain the pregnancy. So this is a syncytial trophoblast, this is a cytotrophoblast. Now intermediate trophoblast. So trophoblast, we have cytotrophoblast, syncytial trophoblast, and in between is what is called intermediate trophoblast. And since they have the property in intermediate of cyto and syncytial, it's called as intermediate, and they are further divided into three. Intermediate trophoblasts are further divided into villous trophoblast, because here soon we'll have villi formation, and the ones lining a the ones that line the villi are cytotrophoblast, but the anchoring has some kind of a intermediate trophoblast, that is in villous intermediate trophoblast. Intermediate trophoblast has more, this is small cell, cytotrophoblast is small cell, and syncytial is kind of large, and intermediate has a size intermediate between both of them, so this will be a little bit more larger. So this is a villous intermediate trophoblast. Then we have this again is the site where implantation is occurring. So again this large intermediate cells are there, not very large, but intermediate between, that is syncytial and cyto. So that is the implantation site. Here is the site of implantation, so that we have the implantation site, site intermediate trophoblast. Then we have the chorionic levee of the placenta and of the fetus, and the ones around or near that is what you call the chorionic intermediate trophoblast. We'll come to that soon, but just to know that, I'll write here intermediate is divided into villous, then implantation site, and chorionic intermediate trophoblast. So this what happens in next stages, this entire thing is syncytial trophoblast. Okay, this is the cytotrophoblast. The embryo etc is here, I'm not drawing. So now what happens is small holes begin to occur inside this syncytial trophoblast, and they will fuse with each other to form bigger lacunae. Okay, small defects will join together to form lacunae. And also here there is implantation site intermediate trophoblast, which is going to invade into the uterine wall, which has the spiral this is the spiral arteries, which is going to invade into the spiral arterioles and also the veins, and once that occurs, blood will come into the lacunae. Okay, we'll see in the next image. So if you see here, this implantation site intermediate trophoblast has invaded into the spiral arteries and also the veins, and the blood from both of them has come into the lacunae. Now the lacunae has joined together and formed a space. Now again, here I have changed the color of cytotrophoblast to blue to make it easier to understand. So cytotrophoblast now begin to form villi, finger-like structures or villi, and they are in continuation with the lacunae. So this is the lacunae. Here we'll have maternal blood, and this is the cytotrophoblast. And if you just look into the next image, this again is a cytotrophoblast, and which has formed a villus-like structure. So the villus is completely formed of cytotrophoblast here. So this is what you call the primary villus. Now what happens is that here we have a developing embryo, and beyond that or around the embryo we have an extraembryonic mesoderm derived from the yolk sac elements, etc. Now this extraembryonic mesoderm is going to infiltrate into the villi, and in between into this villi here, the extraembryonic mesoderm will go in between the villi, and that is what is shown here. When the extraembryonic mesoderm will come in the middle of our villus, and it is called as secondary villi. So this was the primary villi, completely made of cytotrophoblast. Now the core will be made or with the intermediate the extraembryonic mesoderm will come as the core, and now it is called the secondary villus. This is this cytotrophoblast lining. And now we have another called the tertiary villus. This is the primary, we have a secondary, and this is the tertiary. That is when the fetal capillaries begin to come in the extraembryonic mesoderm. That is what you call the tertiary villus. So we have to understand that the fetus is developing and its capillaries are going to come up here. So it was initially the cytotrophoblast only, then the mesoderm came up, this became secondary, and the fetal capillaries came up, it is tertiary. Now to understand another thing, let me rub that off here. So basically I have told that the villus were basically inside the lacunae now. So here we have the maternal blood, mother's blood, maternal blood, and here in the capillaries we have the fetal blood. Here inside the capillaries we have the fetal blood, and through here there is exchange of oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrients and waste products. We'll see from this image. See here, the villus, it will have capillaries now and the fetal capillaries. Here there is maternal blood, so there is exchange between them. So that is what happens there. Okay, so now again to completely say it together, this is the entire uterus with the fetus. It has grown up much more. So this is the decidua capsularis, this is the decidua basalis, this is the decidua parietalis. Okay, this is the chorionic levae, the black one, and these are the villi. And the villi, there is a syncytium and cyto there, which is not shown there, but at the implantation site there is again implantation site intermediate trophoblast, which is the most highly invading, or which has the most highest capability to invade into endometrium, in fact even into myometrium, and it is the intermediate or the implantation site intermediate trophoblast which basically goes into the spiral arterioles, invades them, etc. So we have the intermediate trophoblast, three types. The implantation one, the villus near the villi, they are very few in number. With the villus, intermediate trophoblasts are very less. Cytotrophoblasts are the predominant ones surrounding the villi. Then the villi also has syncytial trophoblast lining outside, and then we have the implantation site intermediate trophoblast, and the ones that we also have a intermediate trophoblast near the chorionic villi, chorionic levae. So that is the chorionic intermediate trophoblast. So intermediate trophoblast we have to understand because many diseases arise from that. So intermediate trophoblast we have three. Villas, they are the least in number because villi are mostly lined by cytotrophoblast and an outer syncytial trophoblast. A little bit of intermediate is there in villus, and they are called villus intermediate trophoblast. At the implantation site, they are called the implantation site intermediate trophoblast, and then the ones around the chorion gleve, they are called the chorionic intermediate trophoblast. Then of course we have the other two trophoblasts. So this is the basic thing to understand, and from each of this we'll have different types of pathology about which we'll be talking. Like we have the mole, first of all, the vesicular mole. We have the what do you call, the choriocarcinoma. We have placental site nodule. We have exaggerated placental site. We have placental site trophoblastic tumor, etc. So this is the first part, and I hope the basics is clear. It had to be brief. Okay, thank you.